So we just explored chapter 1 of the Gospel of Luke. Now it's about time we do some overview. That's a pretty good introduction to the writing style of Luke. As you can see, Luke likes to throw some curveballs at us. The protagonist of chapter 1 deal with two women and the husband Zechariah. And notice how Zechariah, when he questions, he becomes cursed. In the Hebrew scriptures, when people question God, Miriam, Moses' sister for instance, Miriam is cursed. The men are never really cursed for questioning. So Luke is doing some society role reversal here. And that's his portrayal of Jesus in this gospel. And again, from the title, Jesus the Compassionate Savior. The emphasis in that title should be on that word compassion. We're going to do a lot on compassion in a future episode and what exactly that is. But in short, Jesus is there for all people. He is the universal Savior. Luke is probably a Gentile and he's a really good storyteller. He is the only evangelist to write 2 books. 2? He writes Acts of the Apostles, and he writes these between 80 and 90 AD. Around the same time Matthew's writing his 1 book. Luke would prefer that we actually read his Gospel and Acts back to back because they are giving the same theology throughout. But this is, of course, on who is Jesus, so we're just pretty much going to ignore Acts of the Apostles. Luke's audience, just like Mark, Gentiles, which again gives us perspective as to why in his gospel Jesus is portrayed as this universal Savior. He wants to tell his audience, look, the Jews aren't the only chosen ones. Okay, so if you get baptized into Christianity, you are going to be part of God's favorite as well. What's also interesting about his audience is that there seems to be a particular concern for the outcast. Outcasts are not only the Anawim, but also women, any type of underdog story, and obviously sinners. In Luke, Jesus is the compassionate Savior. He cares about rebuilding community. He cares about reconciliation. Some of the best parables come out of the Gospel of Luke dealing with reconciliation. Parable of the Good Shepherd. Parable of the Prodigal Son. This Jesus tends to be a lot more optimistic than the Markan Jesus. Don't forget, Mark's Jesus, suffering servant, kind of emo, kept to himself a lot, never wanted anybody to know that he was the Messiah, never wanted large crowds. In Luke, it's a total 180. Okay, I would describe Luke's Jesus as the party Jesus. His philosophy, his mantra during his public ministry is, let's reconcile and let's party. Let's forgive one another, let's rebuild community, and let's celebrate. It's like the gospel of food. During the birth story, Jesus is placed inside of a manger. A manger is a feeding trough. So from the moment he is born, Jesus is associated with food. This is called table fellowship. Jesus used the imagery of the table in order to bring groups together. A table was a social statement. We'll do more on this later when we get into some of the food. But Jesus was a smart man. Jesus knew if you wanted people to come to your club, you got to offer some pizza. So this is a fun Jesus. This is the compassionate Jesus. Whenever I thought about Jesus growing up, this is probably the image of the smiley, happy-go-lucky Jesus that comes to mind. Luke actually does contain a genealogy of Christ. Remember, Mark didn't have a genealogy, Luke does. In chapter 3 of Luke, Jesus is traced all the way back to Adam. That's significant because Adam, of course, is the father of all people. Whether you view that literal or metaphorical, Luke was trying to say Jesus shares the same blood with everybody. We all go back to a common source. If Luke would have said that Jesus is traced back to Abraham, like Matthew does, whoop-de-doo to a Gentile audience. They don't need to hear that. Oh, great, yeah, well, I know Jesus is Jewish. What does that do for me? So it's really quite brilliant that Luke traces Jesus all the way back to Adam, because we're all sons and daughters of Adam.
Son of Adam.
And so Jesus wasn't seeing Jew and Gentile. When he saw people, he just saw family. Sha-la-la-la. We already saw some of these underdog characteristics in that first chapter of Luke. You have women as your protagonists. You got 12-year-old Mary being the chosen one.
You were the chosen one!
You have the barren woman Elizabeth, the old man Zechariah producing a child. Underdog stories. Does this mean that Luke's audience is underdog? I don't know. But at the very least, Luke wanted to show his audience that Jesus does care for the underdog. And this was a society that was based on the purity system that says, if you are an underdog, it's because you deserve it. Jesus wanted to reform society in that way. He wanted to do away with these labels. He wanted solidarity, everybody on the same playing field.